Hello, and welcome to our second holiday movie in a week. As I was walking out, I was kind of thinking, I always kind of try to formulate what I'm going to say in these reviews as I kind of head out of the theater, and this one's really difficult to get a grounding on in terms of where do you come at it from a review standpoint, because you want to judge it on its own as being its own thing. You want to judge it for its own merits, but at the same time it invites just so many comparisons to everything, not just the classic cartoon, the Chuck Jones cartoon that we all know and love, or at least we should. If you don't, you really need to reevaluate your parenting. And also the Jim Carrey, Ron Howard film of, several years ago. That's like almost 10 years ago, I think, at least. 10 years plus. Which, from what I understand, has kind of a 50-50 reputation. I was not very fond of it, and I know a lot of people were not very fond of it, but I also know there's a large group of people who, of course, saw it as kids, and it became kind of one of their holiday classics. So, you've got a thing with a legacy that you're not sure, so do I compare it to this? Do I compare it to that? And I guess the deal I kind of had to come to with myself is acknowledging a couple of truths. Number one, you cannot compare anything to the Chuck Jones cartoon. It is a classic. It is the best. There's nothing that's going to top it, so don't even try. And the second is, I guess, maybe trying to give it some compare and contrast to the Jim Carrey and the Ron Howard version, as best as I can remember it. I haven't seen it in a few years. So that's a lot of lead-in, and I guess because there's not a whole lot of movie to talk about, it's only about an hour and a half long. So let's start with what worked. First of all, and it should kind of go without saying, the animation is pretty gorgeous. Not just the animation, but the creativity behind the animation. The whole thing looks like a 3D Christmas card. You can tell the animators and the designers really had fun with, the very Christmassy themes. They had a lot of fun with, gadgeting up the Grinch a bit more, as opposed to kind of the bare bones thing he is in the cartoon and the book. Now he's got gadgets to help him out to steal Christmas, and the sequence where he's actually stealing Christmas is pretty awesome. Like I say, the gadgets he uses, the things he does, it's a pretty awesome sequence all around, that I really enjoyed that. And it has some shots in it that really stir the emotions. When the movie just shuts up and lets things happen and lets the visuals, its very strong visuals, help tell its story, it's really good. There are some beautiful shots here. There's the shot where the Grinch is overlooking Whoville, and the camera does this 360, all the way around him, as he's kind of just looking down in the cold and the winter, and he's huddled up, and there's not a lot of dialogue. He's just kind of gazing down. A lot is told in that pan and in his facial expression that give you a lot of character, and that is of course the biggest strength of the Chuck Jones cartoon, is because so much of it is done just through facial expression. You don't need to be told everything. So when the movie kind of slows down and lets itself do that, It's really good. Now, here's the problem. On the flip side of it is that it doesn't do that very often. This is very much a kid's movie. And I think that's a big difference between a family movie and a kid's movie, especially these days. And, you know, for the few kids' movies I have watched and reviewed or seen through friends or who have kids or whatever, it seems like kid movies these days are just so manic. You know, they can't go 5 minutes without a bit of slapstick or someone being tossed around. The Grinch in this is way too Wile E. Coyote for me. You know, and you can tell that this film really would thrive, and what they were planning on it to thrive in is those 3D screens. I don't know how many of them still do that. I know Paradiso does. Just in the way it's shot, you know, a lot of following someone as they're sledding down, a lot of things coming right at the camera, you know, a lot of fast moving. So you can tell they're really trying to cash in on that, that 3D thing. But I think that hurts the film. Instead of letting us live in this nice environment they create, like I say, like a Christmas card come to life, and letting, you know, the visuals tell their story. The visuals are more interested in making sure those kids aren't bored. Go, 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 go. You know, and in a way, I can't blame them, especially if the kids watching the movie are anything like a lot of the kids who are watching this film. I've never seen so many fucking cameras or phone screens in a movie as I did this, and it was the kids holding them because they gotta play their game. Which, again, this is just me talking. I have no kids, so I can't, you know, I'm the last person to judge parenting, but it's like, you're paying $10 fucking a person for the kids to come and stare at their phone. You know, you could have bought them an audiobook and had them do that at the house for free, you know? However, I digress. However, on that, let me kind of get into this. This is another choice that I'm not fond of, and they do it a lot in these Dr. Seuss films from Illumination and Blue Sky and whatnot. I do not like the modernization of the Dr. Seuss aesthetic. Now, what I mean by that is I'm not a fan of the Who's using smartphones. I'm not a fan of some of Cindy Lou Who's friends drawn to look like your typical little millennium douchebag. You know? Now, I know people will come at you, well, you got to update it for the modern audience and blah, 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 blah. And my rebuttal to that is when you do something and make it modern, the problem is modern doesn't fucking last. Modern becomes dated very quickly, especially these days. So you look at this and it's like, you know, those phones and everything are going to be so dated in even just like 5 years. You know, so instead of doing, you know, it's one thing I got to say Illumination did perfect. Illumination's best movie and Blue Sky's best movie, I think Illumination did this one, if not Blue Sky did it, was the Peanuts movie. And they didn't have them use cell phones. They didn't modernize it. They let the kids be the kids and let them be timeless. And I think if they had done that here, I think the movie would have been better. Also, I gotta say, just I'm ditching on this film a lot, and I don't mean to have kind of gone off on a rant, but you know, that's just kind of way I do. But one of the big problems I kind of have with this movie, I do not like the voice cast. I really don't. Or rather, I do not like the choices either made by them or the directors or whoever regarding the voice cast. So you hire Benedict Cumberbatch to play the Grinch. Benedict Cumberbatch, a fine actor, so I'm not just saying this is his only thing, but an actor who is very much known for his very powerful and deep voice. A great voice for the Grinch. Okay, a great modern actor to kind of play the role made famous by the legendary Boris Karloff. So you have him, and instead of having him use his fucking voice, he goes really high and really nasally and does it a lot like this all the time. What in the fuck? Why? And what's worse is that I know, and I'm sure most people know, that Benedict Cumberbatch can get a lot of emotions through his voice. Most actors can. But when the actor is spending so much time trying to maintain, this nasally thing, the emotion they could bring to the voice is lost because they're trying so hard to maintain just the voice. And it really doesn't work. And again, I'm stressing, Benedict Cumberbatch is a great choice to play the Grinch if you let him do the voice like Benedict fucking Cumberbatch. Also, I have to say this, and I did a quick IMDb search on this because I was very curious. The narrator, he's pleasant enough. Phyllis Collin or Williams, I think. I looked him up. I'm mispronouncing his first name. He's actually a composer. He actually has done a lot of music for films. And his acting work, he has some, but they all seem like smaller parts. He really doesn't have that epic storyteller voice that you're looking for to narrate a holiday classic, which even if this film is not, The Grinch fucking is. Sorry to be cliche here, but, Morgan Freeman, James Earl Jones, Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, these guys, Anthony Hopkins, these guys have great storyteller voices. This guy did not. It was just very plain and very there, and it didn't fill you with the epicness of the story, I also have to say this much, in terms of the narration. I wish they had just cut the narration out. Or if you were going to use it, because what's weird is that a lot of things, the Grinch himself carved the roast beef and a lot of these things, they just worked that into the dialogue. They didn't, or into the action. They didn't read the entire book to you. So they were already selective in, where they put the narration in. But where they put the narration in is not dialogue from the book, so they had to go and write new narration. And I'm sorry, adding things to fucking Dr. Seuss is like saying, I'm gonna write new dialogue for Shakespeare. It's not right. If you were only going to use the narration at certain parts, just use it as it already existed in the book. Or don't fucking use it at all. You didn't need to use it at all. So, again, I'm ripping on this film a lot, because there is a lot of it that I'm just not a fan of. But I got to get back on track because there were some really, really nice things in this. First of all, obviously when you take a Dr. Seuss book and you're going to make a movie out of it, it means you got to expand it. Again, why the Chuck Jones cartoon is perfect is it's a 20-30 minute cartoon filled with a lot of it with miming, so that's just the right amount. But if you're going to do a, an hour and a half movie, you've got to add stuff to it. So once again, they try to, for lack of better terminology, humanize the Grinch, and give him a little bit of a motivation. And they tried doing this in the Ron Howard version. I feel it was done a lot better here. Here, I'm spoiling things, so sorry. We just kind of get a brief glimpse of the Grinch as a child in an orphanage, and just showing that nobody really cared about him. He didn't have a family during Christmas. In this version, the Grinch is a lot closer to kind of Ebenezer Scrooge, in that he suffered kind of a traumatic thing as a child and has kind of walled himself off from everything ever since, kind of in that feeling of, I'm not going to let that happen to me again. Compare this to the Ron Howard version, where he was bullied and the town made fun of him, and even as an adult, they lure him to the Christmas festival just to make fun of him and all this. it makes the Who's out to be jackasses. And here they put the reason for his problems solely on the Grinch. And I think that's a much stronger choice. You know, the Who's in this movie are either A, not really aware of him, they don't really register that he's any different than they are, or they're downright pleasant. They have the fun character in here, voiced by Cal Thompson, I think, who's like this uber happy guy who thinks the Grinch is his best friend, kind of like the Ned Flanders of Whoville. You know, he lives next to a total dick, and yet is always pleasant and always nice to him. You know, and that's cool. So it puts that pressure back on the Grinch, that you're actually the one kind of causing your problem. You know, and that's kind of what he comes to realize in the end, that yes, bad things happen, but being bad in return doesn't actually fix the problem. And I think that's a really good choice. I liked that a lot. I also like, I'm going to, again, spoiler here though, I mean, how much am I spoiling How the Grinch Stole Christmas? I liked the way this film ended. This film ended with a neat bit at the very end, which I thought was really clever. So the Grinch steals Christmas, his heart grows 3 sizes, which was a bit anticlimactic. I felt like in the Ron Howard version, where he had more of a relationship with Cindy Lou Who, and that kind of helped make his transformation, was a stronger choice. However, I digress. So he steals Christmas, has a change of heart, brings everything back, and then says he's sorry, and just kind of walks through the Who's and walks back up to his house to be alone again. And he's sitting there alone. And then Cindy Lou Who comes to his house and invites him to Christmas dinner. And he says, but, you know, I stole Christmas. She said, I know, but I did all these things. I know, but you've been alone for too long. And I was like, that is really sweet. And the little added scene, and because, like, they could have ended the movie, you know, pretty early, but they add a little scene of him going to her house for Christmas dinner and everybody being nice to him, and not like just because he was mean, but just genuinely nice, and him just kind of accepting it and realizing he's not ostracized. You know, people are nice to him and they're willing to forgive him. You know, it was a really clever and really well done ending that I will admit got you a little misty-eyed. I'm not gonna lie. And I did not expect that out of this movie. I didn't think I was going to feel anything for this movie. I was very much in the camp of this is going to suck a lot. And yeah, parts of it really did suck. But there were also parts of it that were, quite frankly, pretty close to genius and really clever. That ending is the proper way to modernize a story, to add something to the story that doesn't detract or call attention to it. You know, like so many other things in this film. Oh, okay. I'm sorry to bounce back and forth. I just was real nice. I gotta add one more thing I really hate about this movie. Holy fuck, the revamp or redo or whatever the hell they call it of You're a Mean One, Mr. Grinch. It sucked ass. Totally sucked ass. I mean, the guy saying it sounded like he forgot which order the fucking lyrics went in and was just singing whatever he remembered, you know? So I'm sorry, I had to double back to that because I was going to try to end on the nice, hey, that was a real soft moment. Then I remembered, oh yeah, that fucking theme song, which was only in the movie for like a minute at the very beginning, and it's like, no, that's supposed to be when he's fucking stealing Christmas, ass. Anyway, sorry, again, got really dark there too. But I think this movie is not terrible. I can see how any of the kids who see it now, this will probably become their version of The Grinch. It's going to become one of their, you know, holiday classics. I can see that. It does have things to offer. Perfect? No. But what is? Alright, so final Christmas grade for The Grinch. Oh, man. That's a hard one. It's a hard one to go with. Because part of me wants to be nice and another part of me wants to be honest. So I'm going to have to err on the side of honesty here and go a C+. I know I've been giving out a lot of C pluses as of late, but don't blame me. Blame the movies for being so mediocre. You know? But this one definitely, in terms of that C plus, it definitely lands with its feet firmly on that other side of that plus and into the B minus territory. The stuff that worked was B minus, you know, territory. But unfortunately, at least for me, and again, wrong audience, really, a lot of stuff really didn't work in it, or just was like, why are you making that choice? And, you know, that swings it for me. But a C plus, I think if you have small kids, they'll enjoy it, and you won't feel too stupid or too bored sitting there. There's enough in there that you can kind of have a good time. I will admit this. Okay, one last point in its favor. And again, something I notice a lot with kid movies, and I mentioned it a little bit in the Johnny English review. No fart jokes, no toilet jokes. They had a naked joke, because they always got to have some kid lose his clothes in these films. No one looks into that. You know, why is that the thing we do so much? You know, I give them credit, because that's a real easy path that a lot of these kids films fall into, and they put enough thought in it not to go there. So I respect that. So yeah, not a bad film. All right, so still working on my 3-day weekend at the movies. Got some choices for tomorrow. I'm not sure what I'm gonna see, but I'll probably see something. And I got a hopeful retro review coming up on Veterans Day itself. So happy holidays early to all, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.